Now back to one of our top stories today. North Korea has shut off all lines of communication with the South, including military hotlines. The move comes after more than 2 years of détente and failed peace talks. And for more, we're joined by Duyeon Kim, Senior Advisor of Northeast Asia and Nuclear Policy at International Crisis Group. Duyeon, thanks for joining us this evening. First up, why is North Korea stopping communication links with South Korea, and why now?
Thanks for having me. So it's pretty apparent that North Korea is trying to raise the ante, trying to force, to scare, and to push South Korea to basically give what North Korea has been demanding. And so they're citing the leaflets, but they're actually trying to also manufacture a crisis to force South Korea to meet its demands. Basically, what that is North Korea feels betrayed and misled by South Korea, that before the Hanoi summit between Trump and Kim, that Washington would actually lift some sanctions in exchange for the Yongbyon nuclear complex. But as you remember, at the Hanoi summit, the opposite happened. And they're also upset about these propaganda leaflets. Now, these leaflets, to most observers, may not seem like a big deal, but to North Korea, they're actually the biggest threat against the North Korean regime and North Korea's identity and system, because they reveal the truth, and the truth is what threatens the regime. So these leaflets are basically perceived by Pyongyang as a clash of values and a clash of systems. And so they're also demanding the South Korean government enact some laws to ban these leaflets. And so, I think we also, need to put this issue into perspective. Yes, it's obvious that North Korea is genuinely upset, but at the same time, the issues of leaflets have been a contentious issue for decades, for 50 years. And it's pretty apparent that North Korea is trying to make its its announcement to sever all communications lines with South Korea, to make it seem like this is a far bigger deal than it actually is, when in fact the two Koreas, as important as these hotlines and dialogue channels are, the two Koreas are also quite accustomed to having on-again, off-again hotlines, to having long years and periods of no communication, and then to resume communication again.
Yeah, so with that all in mind, Duyeon, it does sound like we are sort of treading over familiar territory, if you like. What do you think will be happening next then, judging from what has happened in the past when communication lines have been stopped and tensions have sort of increased?
Well, Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, she has recently basically foreshadowed what is to come if South Korea does not meet its demands. And so, she's listed a couple things like demolishing the Kaesong industrial complex, like abolishing the inter-Korean military agreement, and so forth. And, I don't think we can rule out the possibility of more military shows of force, like what we've seen recently with the gunfire exchange, or the gunfires at the demilitarized zone at the border between the two Koreas. We might see even other displays of force, like more artillery drills and so forth. So I think it's safe to assume that Pyongyang will continue to raise the temperature, and they, until their demands are basically met. And so they really want these sanctions lifted. But Pyongyang is disappointed and upset that South Korea cannot move Washington, and has not done its best to move Washington in North Korea's eyes, basically. And the North has also demanded that U.S.-South Korea joint military exercises are also completely canceled and halted forever. And so unless these conditions are met, I don't see North Korea backing down anytime soon.
So given the failed, Trump-Kim talks, are we back to square one with efforts to denuclearize North Korea?
Well, I think we've essentially already been at square one for quite a while, because nuclear diplomacy basically is just non-existent right now. Of course, on the one hand, North Korea is demanding that the U.S. has not been doing its parts, but the fact of the matter is that North Korea refuses to come out to negotiations, direct negotiations with Washington. It rejects all of Washington's calls for dialogue, and it continues to to use public statements to basically negotiate through the media and to negotiate through its public statements. And so the North is basically demanding that Washington first show sincerity by lifting sanctions or by taking steps that would guarantee that the U.S. would lift UN sanctions anytime soon, and also, again, to halt military exercises. So I think right now this, coupled with the coronavirus pandemic, where it makes it physically difficult and logistically difficult to meet and negotiate and have a conversation. Plus, we have the U.S. presidential elections coming up in November. So it would not be a surprise if both sides, both North Korea and the Trump administration, would like to basically kick the can down the road to see what happens after November, and then calculate and then strategize to see whether continuing dialogue is even worth it or not for either side.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. Duyeon Kim, Senior Advisor with International Crisis Group in Seoul.